Welcome to CRO Cafe. I'm your host Guido Jansen, and this episode is part of a mini-series I'm doing, recording ahead of Space Academy, which is an experimentation elite event about AI on experimentation. And it's May 7th in London. My guest today hardly needs an introduction if you spent any time in digital analytics. Jim Sterne founded the Marketing Analytics Summit in 2022. Co-founded the Digital Analytics Association, has written 13 books on digital marketing, and I read on his website that a 14th book is coming. His latest co-authored, no pressure, Jim. His latest book was co-authored with Tom Davenport and is called The New Science of Customer Relationships, out last year. And he also co-founded Coastal Intelligence, a new AI community venture. I wanted to talk to Jim because 45 years of watching this industry change over and over. And to me, it feels like it's changing faster and faster. But that's the 45 years of watching this industry might have given you a different perspective on what's happening to us with AI and the changes that we have. So thanks for joining. Welcome to CRO Cafe.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah, my first question is actually about the book, The New Science of Customer Relationships. It's about delivering the one-on-one promise, right? Personalization at scale that I feel we've been talking about as long as I've been in digital marketing and building websites. What's actually different now? What makes it achievable? And is it more achievable now with AI?
More achievable now because of AI, because of context. Mm-hmm. The One-to-One Future is a book that was written by Peppers and Rogers back in 1993, 95, that said, with data, we can do database marketing and we will know our customers. Yep. And so we had spreadsheets, and then we had CRM systems, and then, wait a minute, big data. Big data is going to solve all of our problems, and we can use machine learning to really understand people. Well, almost. But what we understood was the categorization and segmentation of types of people and types of behavior. But the big unlock that generative AI brings us is understanding context. Mm-hmm. You may remember, I'm sure you do, in the lower right-hand corner of every website, that little robot that said, "Hi, I can answer any question." And you'd ask a question and it would say, "I don't understand your question," because you had to ask it exactly the right way. And I built one for my Marketing Analytics Summit to how hard can it be? There's only a handful of questions. When is the keynote? Where's the bathroom? Will we get lunch? And then you start building these and you realize for each question, you have to write it 27 times because people ask it in all kinds of different ways. Well, now with generative AI, you can ask, "I'm thinking about going to the last keynote, but how close is that to lunch? And I have a 3:00 meeting, and will I have time?" It will understand all that mishmash of language and come up with an answer that has value. This is unique. This is different. This is not just personalization, not just segmentation. People who bought this also bought that.
Yeah.
And not just personalization, because you bought this, you might like that. But tell me more about the camping equipment that you're interested in buying, and I can make a better recommendation.
Yeah, it's also more about the context actually of today, right? It can take in some of the context of what's happening today, what I'm, especially if it's an AI that you've already trained on your perspectives and maybe knows some of the history of what you spoke about today, yesterday, last week. Very nice.
And then the human can add, the customer, the prospect can ask a truly inartful question and be understood by the machine.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think I don't know the percentage from the top of my head, but still a surprisingly large percentage of Google searches also is still new, right? And I think with AI, that's only becoming increasingly difficult to standardize that and know what people will ask. So yeah, AI is really a big help here. Got it. And you've also written about analysts and that they need to move from, and I think they're very happy with this move from report generators to certifiers of systems. So that's a big shift. I guess that's a welcome, but a very different way of working. I can imagine. So then the question is, of course, how do you train to become a good certifier? What's needed for the digital analyst today to make that shift?
Well, it's always been a matter of understanding the data itself. Where does it come from? How valid is it? How reliable is it? How do we manage data observability and validation? That's in some ways can be automated, yay, but also needs the hands-on, eyes-on, human in the loop. Then we need, on the completely other side of the spectrum, we need to understand the business to the nth degree. Somebody says, I need a dashboard, I need a report. The proper response is, oh, I would be happy to help you. And I have lots of other data that might be valuable if you help me understand what question you're trying to answer, what problem you're trying to solve. So that understanding the underlying
and
data...
will people in the business ask that question to the analyst or to an AI built by the analyst?
Both. Okay. So the analyst will build the AI based on the understanding of the business. Mm-hmm. And then we still need to do some data literacy up in the stakeholder area. So they're asking good questions. How do you ask a good question? Yeah. And that is where moving from report writer to trusted advisor comes in. It's understanding what a good question is. How many people saw that ad, clicked on that link, went to our website, downloaded that white paper, put something in the shopping cart, and abandoned it?
Yep.
42? It's like, what? Why are you asking this question?
Yeah. It's only that happens with a lot of these reports, of course. They are built to extensively built and then spend weeks on doing that, and then only to answer a question that was needed 3 weeks ago when it was asked, but will not be asked ever
or
again.
Spending even more time building a dashboard that somebody looks at and says, that's not what I said. It's like, well, it is what you said. It's not what you want, and it's certainly not what you need. Here's what might be helpful. Oh, that's great. And then they never look at it again.
Do you think what we just spoke about with segmentation, personalization, but also the context could help in this case where the business person asks a question and like you said, but that's not really what you mean. You actually mean something else that could be a better answer to your question.
This is where the analyst building tools, building agents. If I'm an analyst and a stakeholder comes to me and says, I need an answer to this question, I'm going to say, oh, great. Here's an agent that has access to all the data that can help answer questions. And that agent, the first thing it does is brings context back to the stakeholder to say, oh, you're asking me this question, but 3 weeks ago you needed to know this, and I know that you're working on that project, and are you really trying to answer this question? If yes, no, yes, great. Here's some information that might be helpful. No, tell me more. What are you actually trying to accomplish? Curiously, the machine, the agent pushing back like that is far more acceptable to stakeholders than a human pushing back. It's like, you're accusing me of not knowing my job. How do you know what I need? It's like, no, the computer, I don't have an emotional attachment to. So yeah, it can push back all it wants.
This is a huge help in my daily life as well, where it's not even an AI, but it's parental controls on the tablets of my kids. If I tell them to stop, that's a big issue. If the tablet just shuts down after half an hour, then they're okay with it.
Machine.
It's the machine.
Yeah.
Hey, but this also touches on. So the analyst needs to know a lot about the business to be able to create an AI, to create the system behind it and the intelligence behind it. And you've seen this industry move along that line, and this is something that happens naturally, I think. So to go to your session at Space Academy, it's called the entry level solution, right? So one of the main questions that comes to my mind in this is that if the grunt work is outsourced, or if the analyst is upgraded to be way more senior or way more high level, How on earth, Jim, are we still going to be able to get senior people around? And if no one is going to be paid to be a junior anymore? I think on the one hand, this always happens. So, I mean, when new technology emerges, machines taking over jobs and taking over manual labor, that happens. And but previously it happened more slowly, I think. And none of us are making websites using C or assembly, so we don't need to know those basics anymore. But still, this how it's going right now feels different and much faster, much more widespread. So without spoiling your keynote, because we'd love to see that, but could you give us a hint? Is there light at the end of the tunnel, Jim?
Very much light at the end of the tunnel, just by teaching different things and having different expectations. Mm-hmm. I am of an age where, as a salesperson, I had a secretary. I would write a letter by hand and put it on her desk, and she would do the typing and create a draft. And then I'd take a red pencil and correct it. And she would write the final one on her typewriter with a carbon copy for the file. And then computers came in. We didn't fire all the secretaries. We just found different work for them to do. In my group, we had 5 secretaries. One of them retired. One became executive assistant to the president. And the other 3 became salespeople because they understood the whole sales process. They were brilliant at it. So do new salespeople need to know how to write a letter, create a draft, create a carbon copy? No, that's all technology. Yep. Do they need to learn how to do word processing? Yes. And so that's the same sort of thing. Instead of learning how to, you need to know exactly how to implement this tool. Yeah, AI can do that. You need to know exactly how to bring 2 data streams together and create a pipeline. Yeah, AI can do that. We need to build in observability and build in data validity capabilities. But once that's done, we can automate that process. Do we still need to understand where the data is fragile and where the data is reliable and what to do in case it breaks? Yes, that still needs to be trained. But we can take that junior's time and educate them more about the business instead of worrying about the technology.
And do you think that, I think that applies to both developers working with code, software engineers, and but also with data analysts. Do you still see value then in them really going through the data, going through the code, and writing stuff themselves? Do you think that's going to be yesteryear's problem and they don't have to bother with that anymore? Or is there still value in that? And what's the role of AI mentoring these people?
There is still value during the transition. Mm-hmm. Right now, coders they're writing code, but they're also vibe coding. They're coding in English, and if you haven't actually built code yourself, how do you know the output is any good? And that's a transition period. What will happen eventually is, what does good code look like will be baked into the system. Yep. So Claude Code, Codex, Cursor, they will be more and more sophisticated and be able to write better and better code. And then the only question is, did it perform the business need? And that kind of, it's moving from from coder to systems engineer to systems architect. Yeah. And at some point, the architect doesn't really need to know how to hammer nails and saw wood. They need to know how to design a building.
Exactly, yeah. And how do you see, what's the biggest issue you see when companies come to you for consulting when it comes to AI and training their people?
The pace of change is outrageous. I do a quarterly workshop for my local government, and it's usually 40 to 50 people, and the chief information officer comes every time. And I said, how can you spare your time to come to this workshop every time? He says, it's different. every time you come in, it's a whole different presentation. We've reached a whole new level.
Yeah, 10 years
That's
ago,
hard.
we could design a presentation and do that presentation for 5 years and just update
I
it here
did.
and there. And now every quarter, your presentation needs to be
Yeah.
completely different.
Well, sometimes every week.
Sometimes every week. So that of course brings me to the question: did you already finish your presentation for Space Academy? Still working.
So the Space Academy presentation, I am going to be doing a dress rehearsal at the Marketing Analytics Summit the week before
Yeah.
in California. And I have, let's just say that presentation is well begun.
Undergoing some last minute updates as always. Yeah.
It's not last minute updates. I need to create a presentation that is not just topical, but timely.
Yeah.
And what else will be released and announced this week is yet to be seen.
Yeah, well, maybe if the conference has good Wi-Fi, it can be just automatically updated in some parts.
There we go. I like it.
So you're also seeing the slides for the first time when you're presenting them, and you can live comment on the live
That's
data.
right.
That's nice.
Yeah, PowerPoint karaoke.
Jim, thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and we look forward to seeing your presentation on May 7th. So Jim is a keynote speaker at Space Academy. The tickets are still available, so check the show notes for a link to the Experimentation Elite website. You can follow Jim on LinkedIn. His newsletter, Full Sterne Ahead, is linked there as well, and his book with Tom Davenport is available on Amazon or in your favorite local bookstore. This is Crocafe. I'm Guido Jansen, and see you there.